All right. And over the weekend, last 4 or 5 days, with the Tigers continuing to struggle, that conversation about Tarik Skubal is picking up. Maybe not necessarily from the Tigers. I haven't talked to anybody on another team who said the Tigers have said, yes, we're going to sell. But the scouting report I've gotten on their general manager, head of baseball operations, Scott Harris, is that he's objective and he's going to be honest about where they stand, and everybody knows he's not going to re-sign with the Tigers for the massive contract. He's going to go into the market as a free agent in the fall. And, this is the Shohei Ohtani quandary that Artie Moreno had in his last year or two with the Angels. And rather than recoup the value, he hung on to the player. He wound up squandering a lot of value. And here the Angels are where they are. On the other hand, I think Scott Harris will be progressive. What jumps out to you about the situation?
Well, the Angels are an organization that is personality driven. The Tigers, as you know, are model driven. They are very much a dollars and cents objective through and through. You wrote a column last week and detailed them that way. I read every word of it and could not possibly agree more with their characterization in the marketplace. Which is to say, Buster, I hate when I'm right about stuff that I don't want to be right about. I would have loved nothing more than the Tigers to have kept Tarik Skubal through opening day, and had he pitched well, stayed healthy, and that team performed at a high level in a year that they did kind of put some chips forward. I mean, the signing of Framber Valdez indicated to me that this was not perhaps a last hurrah, but the kind of olive branch that they sent to the fan base after that nasty arbitration hearing that suggested we think we can win a really lowly competitive American League. And they're not obviously close to that. And so what has happened, of course, is the worst case scenario in which Tarik Skubal has gotten hurt and you've not come close to meeting your expectations. All this to say, Buster, Tarik Skubal being available at the trade deadline this year is far and away the most significant thing that could develop. And
Yep.
I would absolutely love to see the non-usual suspects enter the fray. Obviously, the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Cubs and teams like that are very likely to be bandied about because they're always bandied about. But there are two teams that I circle, Buster, as teams that be dying to know if you think might dip their toe in that water. And those two teams are Milwaukee and Tampa. And I'll tell you why. Very rarely do teams like that, teams at the very bottom of the market, can swim in those pools, swim and have access to talent as explosive as Tarik Skubal. Both teams likely to make the playoffs. Both teams with an opportunity to attract a player in which he obviously is not looking to sign with you, where you don't have a chance, of course, because of your market size and thus your payroll. But when you have the same access to that player as the rest of the league, and in the case of Milwaukee and Tampa, a better than average farm system. In Milwaukee's case, it's consistently in the top five. And in Tampa's case, they had a killing for Shane Baz. They drafted very well last year. That club is pitching outstandingly well this year. Why not amplify that strength? The same can be said about Milwaukee. Imagine facing Tarik Skubal and Jacob Mezorowski in games 1 and 2 of a playoff series. No matter how good or not good your lineup's performing that week, you can beat the Dodgers if both of those guys pitch that well. CCC Sabathia in 2008 and what he did to jolt the Brewers' chances down the stretch, pitching on 3 days rest and the like, and being a hero there in Milwaukee for such a short time. Those are the two clubs, Buster. That's a long-winded way of me saying I'd love to see enter the fray because they would never have access to a player like this in any other context.
You stole my line about CC. I was hoping you'd leave that one alone. The Brewers have lived that. Mark Attanasio, the Brewers owner, has lived that in 2008. His experience trading for CC, who everyone knew he wasn't going to re-sign with the Brewers, but he was just put in the Brewers Hall of Fame, right? Recently because of what he did that year. So Skubal would make sense there. Again, that's not their style. On the other hand, I think Eric Neander, who's the head of baseball operations for Tampa Bay, is absolutely sneaky aggressive. And
Mm.
he has a really good team that says the best record in the American League, and you could see him making a move. I don't think it's going to be the usual suspects. I saw the other day, my friend Bob Nightingale, he speculated, and I don't, of course, don't know who he talked to, but he speculated upon the Yankees. I was like, no, they're not going to. They're loaded with starting pitching. They just got Garrett Cole back, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Cam Schlittler, by the way, we think is going to be on the podcast later this week. On and on. I mean, they're loaded with starting pitching, so they're not going to spend. I wonder if the Dodgers will be hyper aggressive for themselves when you're talking about a rotation already of Yamamoto, and if they get Blake Snell back and Shohei Ohtani and Glasnow, Robleski, who's been terrific for them this year. Are they going to go crazy? I think San Diego's going to get them. I think San Diego, they need a starting pitcher. We know AJ Preller and I say this respectfully, he's a little crazy at this time of year. He makes deals to win the World Series. I was talking about this with David Ross after we did the game yesterday in Kansas City. Like, they make deals to try to win.
Mm.
And man, Skubal would be a fit, and he might be one of the general managers who's not afraid to make a trade where he's giving up a lot of value. So that would be I think Toronto's been mentioned as well. Again, there's no pressure on the Blue Jays. They played in the World Series last fall. They signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to a monster contract. Is Mark Shapiro going to okay a deal where he gives up a lot of value? I don't see it. So my early favorite, the San Diego Padres. All right, we got Michael McGreevy coming up here in a second. Uh, you got something on JJ Weatherholt, one of the players I talked to Michael about.
Buster, I think the last time that we have seen a rookie second baseman this impactful was Dustin Pedroia back in 2007. And you'll recall that was a team that scored nearly 900 runs, that swept the World Series. So it's obviously high praise. But I think it's justified based on what we've seen through Memorial Day. The number I circled for JJ Weatherholt is 2.7. That is his WAR total through the Cardinals' first 52 games. It puts him on a pace for an admittedly unsustainable 8.4. But Buster, what I wanted to do was demonstrate his range of value. How is JJ Weatherholt, a rookie second baseman, among baseball's top 10 position players through Memorial Day? We'll go through it component by component. The first, of course, the glove. Right now, he has logged 8 defensive runs saved. That, of course, as you know, is a cumulative stat with both positive and negative values. Thanks to outstanding results on the high value plays to his right, those plays up the middle, he is thriving. All right, no rookie second baseman in the history of that metric, which dates to 2003, has logged more than 12. He is on pace for 24 defensive runs saved. Let's hit his
Wow.
legs, Buster. The key word here is efficiency. It's all about his efficiency. He's stolen 6 bases. He's yet to be caught. In fact, he's only been thrown out once on the bases in any context. He's taken 12 extra bases at a 60% clip. The major league average for context is 43%. He runs the bases intelligently and thus efficiently. And Buster, we've got to talk about the bat. It's an OPS plus of 121. As you know, that's 21% above average. So here's what I did. I looked at every rookie to play at least 50 games at second base in the history of baseball, of which JJ Weatherholt is the 461st. But so the average batting line of the previous 460 was an OPS plus of 83. In other words, as a hitter,
Wow.
JJ Weatherholt is outperforming the average rookie second baseman by 38%, and he's doing it hitting exclusively leadoff on a 4.5 runs per game lineup. So obviously, this is a guy who is a catalyst for this team, and he's doing it in every single phase of the game.
I got off the plane here in Boston, and a Cardinals fan came up and introduced himself, and he was talking about how exciting, it has been to watch this team this year. And JJ Weatherholt, Michael McGreevy, they're right in the middle of that. If you're a Brewers fan, you're excited about Jacob Mizorowski, friend of the podcast, who was on recently. What do you got on him? He just keeps rolling along.
Well, unless you've been living under a rock, you very likely know that he is basically breaking a velocity record every single time he toes the slab. And his most recent start, of course, is no exception. But Buster, you know that he was throwing gas last year across the last 2 months when he had an ERA north of 6, when he was relegated to the bullpen in the playoffs because he was so unreliable as a starter. So I wanted to answer the question, what has enabled him to go from thrower, which he was last year, to pitcher, which he, of course, is right now? The first and most obvious improvement is strike one. Buster, his first pitch strike percentage has improved from 58 to 66, after which the league is slashing
Wow.
114, 163, 167. It's the most downhill at bat in baseball when he gets ahead of you 0-1. Now, the second thing that I wrote down, Buster, is that he is executing far better against left-handed hitters. Last season, they posted a 731 OPS against him. This year, that number is 399 with a strikeout rate of 48%. Here's the context on that. We have platoon data going back to 1974. Both of those figures would be the best by any pitcher in any season with a platoon disadvantage. He is thoroughly dominating left-handed hitters. The last thing I wrote down, Buster, is that he is leveraging his four-seam fastball as a put-away pitch. He threw the fastball last year in 2 strike counts 50% of the time. This year, it's 62%. He leads the majors with 100 strikeouts, and 68 of them are via his fastball. But the most remarkable thing of all is that he leads the league with that pitch in strikeouts swinging and strikeouts looking. In other words, he is leveraging his fastball as both a swing under pitch and as a freeze pitch, which is something that you basically never see anyone do with any single pitch. It goes without saying that this guy blows cheese, but I think what needs to be said is that he has gone from being a thrower to a pitcher and is just the latest in a long line of player development success stories for the Brewers.
So I have a theory here after talking with him. This really jumped out at me. Nolan Ryan, it's so funny because some old school baseball fans go, "Why don't pitchers train like Nolan Ryan? Like Nolan Ryan showed how it was done." And I'm just like, Nolan Ryan was a freak, right? He was physical freak that you'd be able to pitch that much through the years and basically be able to stay healthy. I don't know if you heard our interview with Jacob, but I asked him the question that Connor Griffin forwarded to him, which is, "How do you feel the day after you throw that hard?" And Connor clearly with the what he was implying with the question was, you must be sore the next day." And to see his face in that interview, Jacob's face in that interview, and him going, "I feel fine." I kind of wonder if we just have one of these rubber band guys like Nolan Ryan, where he just has an unusual physiology that's going to allow him to continue at this level. Does that make any sense?
It does. Some guys are just sort of unusually touched by the gods. Jacob Mizorowski
Right.
might well be one of them. He also is someone, and you can very clearly see it when he wears his baseball pants, has put on considerable muscle in his legs. And so he's dropping and driving in a way that he wasn't last year. Last year, it
Yeah.
was largely arm whip. Right now, it's that arm whip plus that drive that enables him to extend down the mound. It's a special arm. I mean, I don't think it's controversial to say he's the hardest throwing starting pitcher of all time, given the fact that we know
Yes.
now that pitchers throw faster than they ever did before. What we're seeing every fifth day is special, and the fact that he's actually dotting it right now is terrifying.